We are now joined by an eyewitness to the shooting death of Michael Brown. She is Tiffany Michelle. She is here with her lawyer, Peter Cohen. Tiffany and Peter, thank you very, very much for doing this tonight. I appreciate your time now. Tiffany, I just wanted to begin with a simple fact. Did you know Michael Brown?
No, not at all.
And you're not from that neighborhood where this took place?
No.
And why were you there?
I was on my way to pick up an employee. She lived right in front of where it happened.
And tell us what you saw as you came into that area.
Okay, as I come around the corner, I hear tires squeaking, and as I get closer, I see Michael and the officer like wrestling through the window. Michael was pushing, like trying to get away from the officer, and the officer was trying to pull him in. As I see this, I pull out my phone because it just didn't look right. You never just see an officer and someone just wrestling through the window. So as I pull out my phone, the first shot was fired through the window, and I just like try to get out the way. I pull onto the parking lot right beside where the cop car was, and that's when Michael like kind of broke away and started running down the street. The officer gets out of his vehicle and he pursues him. As he's following him, he's shooting at him. And Michael's body jerks as if he was hit. And then he turns around and he put his hands up. And the officer continued to walk up on him and shoot him until he goes all the way down to the ground.
Tiffany, how far away from the police car were you when you first started looking at this?
I was really close. Like, I was feet away. Like, can't say exactly. I was about 10, 20 feet away from the car.
So were there any cars between you and the police car?
Not at all.
Okay, so you had a clear line of sight of that car?
Yes.
Okay, and I just want you to listen to something that the St. Louis County Police Chief said about what happened when Michael was standing at the car. Let's listen to this.
One of those individuals at the time came into as the officer was exiting his police car, allegedly pushed the police officer back into the car, where he physically assaulted the police officer.
Tiffany, is that what you saw?
No, I didn't see the initial whenever they pulled up on each other, whenever the cop pulled up to them, but what I saw was Michael trying to pull away from the cop through the window.
And could you see if the police officer was touching Michael when he was trying to pull away?
Yes, he was. He was pulling him in.
And so he was trying to, what you saw was the police officer trying to pull Michael into the car?
Yes.
Did Michael's body stay out of the car the whole time?
Yes.
And the first shot, tell us about the first shot, what you saw when you heard the first shot.
When I heard the first shot, they were still like at a tug-of-war stance. Like he was pulling in and he was pulling out, and then the shot came through the window, and that's whenever like Michael like kind of pulled back and he yanked away.
So Tiffany, could you see Michael's hands when the first shot was fired?
Yeah, they were up against the SUV pulling away.
So you saw his hands outside of the car when the first shot was fired?
Yes.
And so what the police chief said there about Michael getting inside the car somehow and assaulting the police officer inside the car, and you didn't see that happen?
No, I did not.
Okay. I want to play you something else, a little bit more of what the police chief said, Chief Belmar said about what happened in the struggle over the officer's, what he says was a struggle over the officer's weapon. Listen to this.
It is our understanding at this point in the investigation that within the police car there was a struggle over the officer's weapon. There was at least one shot fired within the car.
Tiffany, did you see anything that could have been a struggle over the officer's weapon?
No.
Because you just said that every time, when you were looking at it, Michael's hands were outside of the car.
Yes.
And he says, the chief says, there was one shot fired within the car. We're not sure what he means by that. You and the chief agree that that first shot was fired while the police officer was still in the car.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're just not clear. The chief seems to think possibly that Michael's body or part of his body was somehow inside the car also at that time. Did you hear anything said by Michael or the police officer?
No, not at all.
And
I couldn't hear anything from either of them.
I want you to listen to something else. That there's another statement by a police officer. I'm not sure we have it, but the chief of police of the Ferguson Police Department said that the officer had to go to the hospital afterwards because his head had been banged on the side of his head, and in the police story, they seem to think Michael had something to do with that. Would that make any sense to you based on what you saw?
And don't these guys supposed to have like dashboard cams on their vehicles or something like that?
Well, if they apparently not, but if they did have a dashboard cam, it wouldn't be aimed out the side of the car probably. So we don't have any help.
It would have heard what was going on.
Yeah, it would have heard. That's right. It would have picked up the sound. What did the police officer look like?
He was a white male, tall white male.
And did he have a hat on? When he got out of the car?
No, he didn't.
Okay. And what did he do? Tell us again what he did when he stepped out of the car. How far away was Michael from the police car when the officer stepped out of the car?
Michael was like right behind his car at like the next car that right behind it. It was a white Monte Carlo right behind the police car that was stopped behind him because he couldn't get by. And he was probably like passing that car at that time. And that's when the police got out and was firing right at him. As soon as like Michael like yanked away and started running, the police got out right after.
And so what position was the police officer in when he started firing for the second time?
He was running after him.
So he didn't stop to fire. He was actually physically moving and running and holding the gun while firing. And this was a handgun, right? It wasn't a long barrel firearm?
Yes, it was a handgun.
Okay. And how many shots do you think were fired?
I didn't count the shots, but I know it was like more than 5 or 6 shots.
Well, the police chief, all they've said about that is that it was more than a few, which it probably is in agreement with you on what that number is. That's a fact that we'll know as soon as they release that information.